wanna do now is making it last. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, friends forever, strengthening the ties that keep us together. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, friends forever, strengthening the ties that keep us together.
Hello, my name is Drainese McLaren, graphic artist.
And I'm Kevonn Grant, math teacher and youth leader.
And I'm Noreen Daly, and this is the Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping people to have better relationships, not just with themselves, but with other people. Now, the conversation this time around is always an interesting topic anytime you want to talk about sex, especially with young people. So the question that we will be trying to answer this time around is, why should sex be introduced at church and school to ensure healthier marriage relationships? Who wants to weigh in first?
All right, let me jump right in. So as you said just now, that introducing the whole idea of sex, important things related to sex at the church, schools, does have, well, I believe at least, far-reaching impact effects on marriages in the future, particularly because of a word known as taboo.
Okay.
I believe that, especially at the younger age, the whole idea of sex is this thing that you're not supposed to know about. Let me try and put it a little bit more in layman terms. I remember growing up that even just seeing on TV two persons, one person, even just kissing the cheek of another, you'd be like, ew. And growing up, as strange as it sounds, when I was in prep school, we used to actually believe in things like cooties, So we used to interact with the girls, but if it get too close, we'd be like, no, we don't want your cooties. And no, honestly, we used to believe some strange things. And so, but I can't even be too graphic with some of this foolishness we used to believe.
Okay.
But I believe though that in addition to it having an impact on marriages later on, I do believe it will also help to curb some of the issues we have with young people even before they reach to the marriage stage. I believe that unhealthy marriages, especially in our time, are the result of young people who have not yet gone into the marriage phase. They are just dating, but they are more than dating. They're experimenting with the things that they thought were taboo, things that they didn't have a lot of knowledge about. And by the time they hit, some child development psychologists suggest that by the time they hit the ages of 15, 16, where it's more about their friends, going out with their friends, experiencing what they want to experience with their friends, they sort of begin to step into a kind of, I can begin to own my own life kind of vibe.
Okay.
And so I think many young people begin to say, hey, before I used to shy away from this thing because I never got exposed to it at home, never got exposed to it at school, never got exposed to it at church. As a matter of fact, at church, I'd be ostracized if I even tried to have certain conversations about the topic. And so by the time they hit this age now and they're beginning to step into this individualization, owning themselves, doing what they want to do for themselves, they begin to, the term that we use popularly nowadays is rebel.
Okay.
And explore the things that the older persons who are shielding them from these things, sex particularly, they start to explore these things. And because they didn't have the proper knowledge of certain things having to do with sex, they get themselves in trouble. Getting themselves in trouble now, sometimes they reach a path where their whole idea of relationships get messed up.
Yes.
So by the
Yes,
time they
yes.
get to the point now where they want marriage, they have these warped views of what a strong, good marriage looks like, what a good man, good woman looks like. And so it becomes difficult for them to find, quote unquote, the right partner, or even if they do, because their views are so messed up,
Yeah.
they bring this messed up mentality into the relationship and make what could have been a beautiful thing very tedious and difficult.
Drainese?
What he said. Well, there is a saying that a couple creates a family creates a community, and a community creates a society. And church plays a big role, I feel, especially in the Jamaican culture, where you know, you're held to certain standards, especially when you're growing up in the church. Now, as somebody who grew up in the church, I found that my church was very very liberal in terms of letting information be out there and known.
Okay.
But for persons who aren't as fortunate, I can say bringing those conversations up would be rather challenging. But the benefits of doing that, as Mr. Grant said, are you are more aware of what is happening around you. You're more prepared for certain situations. You're able to move forward progressively and think, these are my boundaries so that certain things don't progress this far or too far too quickly. And it helps you and aids you as you grow older to form productive and healthy relationships with other persons. So let's say persons of the opposite sex, you can still go out and go out maybe and go shopping or buy food or sit down and have lunch together, and it's not awkward. It's not, oh, it's let's kiss, let's hug, let's whatever. It's oh, hey, let's have a good conversation, a good time, enjoy actual food, have real conversations. And those are the things that were brought up even in AY programs when I was growing up, to say, how do Christian young people date? How should we go about dating? And things like those help when you're actually getting to the stage where, hey, I like you. Let's do this. And we're like, let's go somewhere and do an activity together, rather than, hey, let's sit down in a house and watch a movie and no one's there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're gonna stay on in terms of the church aspect for a bit, because I believe, because Drainese mentioned in terms of, you know, growing up and just how open your church was. But I really think that it is something that we really don't talk about enough. And even when sex is talked about, I remember when sex was talked about growing up, you only hear about it being
In the context of
in the
marriage.
context of marriage, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but it is also in the context that people have sex to have children. So in some way, you know, if you're not careful, you grow up thinking that, okay, fine, you know, yes, you must get married first, but then also when you get married, it's so as to have sex. But it is so much more than that.
It if I could jump in right there too. I think the notion that you must not buy pussy in a bag. The whole idea of it, I believe, comes from a misunderstanding of how sex in a relationship actually works. Because when you listen to some weird views just off the street, you believe some stupid things about sex.
Right.
And because of that, people begin to believe, well, you can't wait until you get tied down in marriage to know these things. And so they begin to experiment with it. Because they want to figure out if this is true, if this works, if that works. And so as I was saying before, people get themselves into problems and sometimes situations that they don't want to be in. But if just general basic knowledge about how this thing works, coming from reliable sources, we're taking the church in this instance.
Right.
If that came from reliable sources, young youth leaders in the church, elders, Sabbath school person, even just the regular married couple or persons who have experienced, just comes up and shares these things in whatever forum that the people are comfortable with, because you don't want to create cognitive dissonance and just slap the brethren in the face with this kind of thing. So whatever forum comfortable where these persons who are experienced can come and share this information, then I think it would help young people to create healthy understanding of these things. If I could just use an example, the Ministry of Education or Ministry of Health, or both maybe, took the initiative now to get the females in our schools, high schools, take a particular vaccine. And because there was not much knowledge or proper knowledge about these things circulating, many parents opted to have their daughters not be vaccinated. Primarily because, and this is the vibe I get when I hear school nurses speak, primarily because they don't fully understand information about it. And the same thing happens with sex. And so you find persons thinking, I remember growing up, if I could connect to what Drainese was saying, I remember growing up, I did not have my first girlfriend until third year in college. And it was because I was observing young people around me, and it just seemed boring. They sat there for hours, minutes, sitting in just silence. And I was saying, what was the point of this? I had the view that I should only begin to date when I found somebody that I thought I could marry. Because my view was there would be nothing different in a relationship, as a couple, as opposed to just having a good friend.
Right.
And the only difference I could conceive would have been sex. And so, because this whole idea of sex was so far removed from me, I mean, it's not like I knew nothing about it, but it was, mysterious to me. I automatically placed that as a key cornerstone in a relationship. So I told myself that it would be pointless to be in a relationship because I'm not going to have sex. And so I didn't have that kind of a relationship all of my high school years. Not that it's bad, but at the same time, the point is, my views were warped, and it affected how I viewed relationships. And so I thought that a relationship had to be grounded off sex. And so I think a lot of young people who don't know certain things about relationships and sex, because I don't think sex is by itself. Sex gets connected to a whole lot of stuff, family life, even your own personal development, health, and a lot of stuff. Because young people might not get this information from our youth leaders and our church leaders. And I'm saying that primarily because I think the church is worried about what is happening to young people, particularly as it relates to healthy relationships. So it's not that I'm bashing anybody, but the reality is that I think our church leaders are concerned about it. And I think it's because we, for the most part, haven't given the young people a reliable source to come to within the church to understand why is it that the church even believes what it believes about sex. The context of marriage and stuff like that. Why is it that even though you look around and you see common law relationships where people are not even married, they're having sex outside of marriage, and yet still they seem to be happy, stuff seems to be going on for them, young people are looking out at that and they're saying, but the church makes it seem as if you have sex out of marriage, nothing can happen for you.
Yeah.
And so young people need to have a place where they can have these kinds of conversations so that they become more informed and make better decisions for themselves and not go and experiment. Because I don't believe that you have to experience to know.
Yeah. Yes, I know you're enjoying this discussion, but you're going to have to join us again next time for the conclusion of this conversation. So until next time, I am Noreen Daly for the Making It Last podcast, where it's all about better relationships, not just with ourselves, but with other people.
You loving me, I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.